The last time the Niners played in New England and then played in Seattle the next week was 2012 when they were a Super Bowl team. That was one of their best teams we've ever seen. They went to New England and won. It was very impressive. They were going against Tom freaking Brady. They won. The next week they go to Seattle. Everyone expected them to win that game. I expect them to win that game. They got blown out 42-13. And it wasn't because Seattle was that much better than them. Seattle didn't go to the Super Bowl that year. The Niners did. It was jet lag and exhaustion. It's just really tiring. If you've made that trip from Boston to the Bay, you know it's hard. So my question is, how big of a factor do you think fatigue will be in this game? And what will be the difference?
I think one thing on the 2012 team, that Seattle team was at the time underrated, honestly. It was before Russell Wilson had the big contract, so they were a much deeper team. But with this Seattle team, I think you have to control the ball, and that will be a way to get rid of the jet lag factor in a way. Is if you're controlling the speed of the game, if you're still tired when you're controlling the speed, that there's another problem wrong. Then if you're controlling the tempo, the Seahawks are going to score quick plays. I think that's the way they're going to get all their scores. The 49ers need to run the ball, slow it down, get their defense a lot of rest. And I think their offense should be able to handle long, sustained drives. As long as the defense gets a little time, they should be fine.
So the main difference, the elephant in the room is that 2012 Seattle's defense was outstanding compared to the 2020 Seattle. I think Correct. I saw a stat to where they're only like less than 200 yards already giving up. Their 49ers are going to have this Seattle's defense 2020 give up more passing yards on the season than that 2012 defense. So that's kind of the elephant in the room there. And then that game in New England, it was a Sunday night matchup. And I think that Seattle game, was that another primetime game as well?
It might have been. Yes, it might have been. It was 8 years ago, but I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, so I think as far as like the travel-wise, that's what, three and a half less hours to fly back home. So by then, the 49ers already kicked off the ball in 2012, and then in 2020, they're already on the charter flight back home. So you do have that little bit of extra time. Seattle, they just got done playing overtime in Arizona. 49ers already landed in San Francisco before they even got on the flight in Arizona. So I think it's just so many different factors. I do see where you're saying on this question because, yeah, anybody's going to be jet lagged. That's obvious. But I think they understand the task at hand from texting one of the players. I told him, hey, great job against New England. He told me back, oh, thanks, but we have a big matchup this week. I was like, okay, I'll go let you do your thing. Sure. And so I think they're just goal-minded right now, and to where it's a completely different level where that 2012 Seahawks team was coming up. They may have been overlooked rather than this 2020 Seahawks team. They're not being overlooked. Right now they're 5-1, number one in first place.
I wonder which player you texted. Okay,
I'm sure you could guess it. Not Cohn.
I think it's going to be a factor. I mean, if I'm handicapping this game, that's like a half-point difference, so it's a factor. But consider how fresh Seattle's going to be. It was just mentioned, they're coming off of a grueling game against the Cardinals. And I posted something to Twitter here. The Niners' leading players on defense who had the most snaps last week were Tavarius Moore and Marcel Harris. They had 52 snaps each. They're fresh because they just got in there, right? Nobody else on the Niners' defense had more than 41 snaps, okay? Seattle, on the other hand, had 6 defensive players with 73 snaps. And so
check out the stats on Tony.
I think there's a chance that Seattle might, coming off that really emotional win. I mean, when that game went into overtime, I said right in that moment during the coin toss, I said, I hope this goes the whole 10 minutes. And I hope Seattle uses up all their steam in this game. And that was a demoralizing defeat, an extra 10 minutes of football, extra snaps. And so I think it's going to kind of balance out. Yeah, the Niners have the tougher travel schedule, but Seattle played more snaps. I will say this, though. Seattle did have their bye right before that grueling week. And so it's a factor, but I'm not too concerned about it.
It's a factor, but it's a factor going up against both teams. Just like Tony just touched on, he did an excellent job breaking down the snaps and everything. I'm in agreement. I don't think that fatigue will be the deciding factor in the game. It was such a long game last Sunday night for the Seahawks and the Cardinals, went right down to the wire. That hurts. That hurts them. And then they have to bounce back and play a division opponent. That's going to be tough. And it's a cop-out, in my opinion, to blame this game if it's a loss on being tired. It's a football season. You play. It is. You got to be ready to go. in every profession, not just playing football, you have to show up to work ready to go and execute what you've been working on. So I don't like the whole they're tired. Going back to 2012, when they played the Patriots and the Seahawks back to back, that was like 2000. That was week 15 and week 16, if I remember correctly.
That's true.
This is week 8. The season's still a baby right now. Come on, you're not Jerick McKinnon with the tired legs or whatever. Come on, unless you're Jerick McKinnon with those ACL injuries, you have no excuse with your tired legs. It's go time. This is a divisional matchup. You need to be ready to go. No fatigue, no excuses.
Nick is fired up. I like
Let's
that
go.
answer. Dude, it's going to be a major factor in this game. It's going to be a major factor. You're going to see it early. But the point that you guys have made is that I think it's a factor for the Seahawks too. I think it's going to be a factor for both teams. The Niners, I mean, the travel is what is going to drain them. And for the Seahawks, the game that they played last week was draining. Now, the Seahawks, both teams are up for this. The Seahawks don't lose 2 games in a row. I think they're like 31-8 after a loss with Russell Wilson. So this is going to be a tough game. But as you guys have pointed out, they had to work so hard just to lose last week. And now they got to come back and play an even better team, maybe. So I think it's going to be a factor for both teams. And I'm starting to think that this is going to be an ugly, low-scoring game, even though the Seahawks have no freaking defense. I just kind of have a feeling that it's going to be sloppy. The execution's not going to be great. And it's going to be the under.